ask you to change the title for me, Aiden, please.
Got you.
One of these days, we should just make the title generic and just be done with it.
I agree.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel like it's just one of those things, right? That you like you'll never know.
happen, dude.
Okay, let me play out Twitch up. What's going on here?
I invest with Questrade.
It's also really whack that whenever I look at your stream as an admin, it still or as a mod, it still shows me ads.
I know, it's stupid.
You know, like I would have assumed that mods don't see ads.
I'm
But
sorry, you don't have a tier 3 subscription to my channel. Only I do.
do you see ads when you watch your stream?
I
That
don't
would be
see ads.
okay. That
I
would be
don't.
so funny if even the broadcaster saw ads. Holy cow!
That's why I'm always confused when people see ads because I can't test to see if there's ads.
Yeah, I
That's
think
the
I
fuck.
think ad you'll always see ads. I mean, like not you, like other people always see ads. I think after a certain, I don't know how it works to be honest, but if you've turned off all the ads you can and you still see ads, and that's just how it is, unfortunately. So yeah.
Necessary evil. Did you ping everyone yet?
No. Do you want to do that?
Sure, I got you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. What was it doing here? Let's see. Is the stream on? Okay. All the ads over. Let's go. Also, I did see you ban someone like last week for like advertising some bot site. At first, I didn't actually realize that was an ad. I thought like, was this person in the wrong stream? And then I realized, oh, that's what it's supposed to mean. That was actually really funny.
It's just be how it be. It
That's
just be how it be.
that is just being how it be. I've had a lot of people reach out to me recently asking about like more object-oriented design questions recently. People have been kind of getting those. What's that?
But I feel like it's good that they're asking about that, but I think they're asking it because it's easier. You got to start giving out the leak code mediums again, my dude.
I've been giving some of the ones I've been giving are pretty medium. You know, I think maybe it might be fair to say that it was solved more at the easy level, but the questions are at a medium level.
Mhm.
The one today is one of my, I wouldn't say favorites. All of my questions are my favorite questions. Okay, but
I have a question. I like join. I stay in Discord or I join the
no, you
join
stay
the.
here. You stay here. You stay here.
Okay.
That thing in the server is just to notify people to let them know things are going on.
Right.
But we stay in the private calls so people can't interrupt us.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just see how many people do we got? 14.
You got 14.
Okay.
More people will probably join in a bit.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute and then we'll get started.
okay.
Yeah.
Also, hello everyone. Welcome. Oh yeah, I just jumped to 27.
Oh, you know, actually, once
So-
I was asking this is not this interview. This is a different system design interview, so not OOD either, and it was implement the view counter for YouTube, and that one's actually really interesting.
Like system design wise?
Yeah, system design wise.
What is view capture? Is that like
View counter. You know the number of views.
Oh yeah, I could. Oh my God, there's a lot you could talk about.
There's
that.
a
Just
lot
like,
you can talk about.
I mean, like you can talk about like how do you validate something's a view because you definitely don't want to use clicks because if you just use clicks, then I can just spam it. Then you can start talking about like okay, like how much of a video do they need to watch? What if they just skip through the video? What if they don't
Yeah.
watch most of the video? So there's a lot of really interesting things that you can actually like do.
It's
in that
fun.
sort of
It's a
context.
fun question because depending on whether they're back end or front end focused, you can direct the interview. You can curate the interview for them. Like front end stuff would be they downloaded this many chunks, but how do you validate that they actually watched and sat through the chunks, right? So fun stuff. Anyways, okay. Let's see. That's enough stalling today. That's enough stalling today. Oh, what is these? Cheer one. Someone who's more who's more literate can understand what that means. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started. Okay, so yeah, thanks for joining everyone. Today we have a mock interview with this wonderful volunteer from the community. We're gonna be doing an object-oriented design today. So this is like these kind of interviews have been in high demand, so they're good to kind of watch and kind of get a feel for. Anything you want to say before we get started, Chloe?
No, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, so the format this one we're gonna be going through this problem for about 45 to 50 minutes or so. I'll give you a 5 to 10 minute warning at the end, so you can think about wrapping things up, and in the end we'll give you some feedback as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll be dictating this question. I'll be saying it. You're free. Is Python your preferred language, by the way, for object-oriented design?
Maybe could you switch to Java?
Yeah, I can switch to Java. Anything's fine. Okay, so that should be okay. Yeah, so this is going to be since this is you might be writing more than one class. It's okay to, because this is just one file, right? You can't have more than one top-level public class in Java. It's okay to like do a bit of pseudocode. I'm not checking. We're not going to be running anything. This will mostly just be for, checking your modeling skills and a bit of some algorithms as well.
Okay.
Okay, so this problem, we're going to be modeling a recipe app. Okay, so this is an application where there's some recipes on it. So like cooking recipes. Okay, and a cooking recipe in this context is a set of ingredients as input and a product. Okay, so for example, a recipe could be like 1 tomato plus 1 salt equals 1 tomato sauce. Okay, so this is an example of a recipe, and you'll have a set of recipes in this recipe app. Okay.
Okay.
Now another feature of this recipe app is that users can connect it to a smart fridge. Okay, so you don't have to talk about that part, but I want you to know that this recipe app knows what ingredients you have in your refrigerator and pantry. Okay, so it knows what ingredients you have. Okay. So this is kind of this is kind of like the universe we're talking about in this case. And just as a question to open it up, right? So first of all, I want to be able to model these classes, model these objects. And then as just like an opening question, we can talk about, whether or not a recipe is able to be created. So can a user cook a given recipe?
Oh, okay. Are you putting some description on the?
No, so this is going to be dictated. Okay. So you're free to take notes over here.
Okay.
We can get rid of all this other stuff as you need. And so yeah, you can make other classes here. This is not real Java because you can't put public classes like this, but this is fine. Like you can just make classes that you need. You can ask me for clarification on anything.
Okay.
This is how most of these interviews will be given.
Do you finish all? Introduce the.
That is the bulk of the data model. That's the bulk of the idea. I can go through it again if you want for some clarification, or if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to talk about that as well.
Let me try to tell you what my understanding is.
Okay.
The first is an app, recipe apps, and there is a set of recipes. So
that's right. Yeah.
Example, maybe I want to cook a fried rice, for example.
Sure.
And fried chicken. And also there is some ingredients like egg, rice, chicken, tomato, etc. And what you want is like input. There's some ingredients in the fridge, and if you input some ingredients, it can be cooked in. You can cook some ingredients to make it into a product based on the recipe. Is it?
That's pretty close. So I want to clarify a couple of things here. So this is a recipe app, that's right? And this recipe app, you can think of it as consisting primarily as a set of recipes, okay? So let me help you out here. So we have a set of recipes, okay? So the goal is to model a recipe app, okay? That's the goal here. And as part of this world, we have a set of recipes, okay? exist set of recipes. Okay. And
Okay.
what is a recipe? Okay, so recipe. Okay, so the recipe consists of a set of input ingredients. Okay.
Okay.
And this includes both a quantity and a name. So for example, this can be example, we can have one, or let's do it this way, egg one, rice two. Okay, so this is an example of a input to the recipe. Okay, and the output is one item. So this case we have example as output is fried rice.
Okay.
Rice one. Okay, so this is what a recipe is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is sort of the recipe aspect. There's another aspect to this question, which is that there is a smart fridge. You can just imagine this is a magic item, doesn't really matter. And it can communicate with the recipe app. And it tells the recipe app all of the ingredients that you exist. Okay, so there's fridge.
Okay.
Okay, set of ingredients, ingredients, I can't type, with quantity. Okay, so for example, this might be, let me do it this way. This might be a set of, so egg, you might have 10 eggs, you might have rice in the fridge, you have 20 of those. You might have, okay, maybe salsa in the fridge, but just in general, there's a total all ingredients, okay? So you have 50 of those guys, and chicken, you might have like 2 of that, okay? So the fridge is just a set of ingredients and its quantities, how many of those you have, and the recipe app knows about everything here, okay?
Okay. I see.
Now, so the first question is model this. That's the first question. One, do that. All right. Second question, given a recipe, can you cook it? Okay.
Okay.
So this is the
So-
world that we live in.
I see. First model the recipe in the fridge, and also, for the second question, it means, for example, given a recipe. So, for example, like given fried rice,
Mhm.
and I need to check whether in the fridge have enough ingredients. If it has, and then it can be cooked. If it not, it's not can be cooked.
That's right. Yep. So, these recipes, right? So, you can imagine writing like a function that takes in a recipe as a parameter, and you return true or false, depending on if you can make it or not. Yeah.
Okay.
But start with modeling the situation first before writing that function.
So I'm thinking if model the recipe,
Mhm.
is a set of first there's some name of the recipes, and also some instructions or the what's the ingredients in it for this recipe.
Yep.
And this is how I want to model the recipe. I am thinking of what kind of data structure to storing this information. So, for example, for fried rice, I need to store such things. Chicken and salt, something like this. And so I think I will using map to storing the information for the recipe, because the name of the recipe can be as the key to querying it. And also the ingredients can be also storing in a map.
Okay. Can we consider using maybe a class for this?
Yeah, sure.
If you have a map of properties, that is what a class is.
So, for example, here, class recipe.
It could be pseudocode, by the way. You don't have to write the access modifiers. You can just tell me, like, for example, fields and maybe some signatures for
Okay.
what.
I think the fields is
Yeah, sure.
I think the class can be one recipe,
Mm-hmm.
and one recipe is filled is its recipe name, and also let me try to storing the ingredients of this recipe into a map.
Okay.
Here it's string and integer. It means
Okay.
the ingredients names and quantity. I think first this is the field of the recipe.
Yeah. Okay.
There will be some methods or some there will be some method, but let me design it later. I need to consider thinking about like the fridge and also the
Yeah. Sure.
what do you want? I mean, what function you want.
Mm-hmm.
And in the fridge, there's just storing a set of ingredients. So the fridge and I am thinking of whether to like put the ingredient into a class.
Like an ingredient class.
Yes, maybe
That
it's a
makes.
bit I mean, if just for small app, maybe there's no need to put ingredient as an app.
What's as in class you mean, or as in
Oh, as a class,
what's the benefit of making it a class versus not?
I am, for example, if ingredients just maybe just the name of it, so it seems
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
don't need it currently,
Okay.
and just for free. I want that a map to store the ingredients inside of the fridge.
Okay.
Can be stored the name and also the quantity. So for the function you want giving a recipe, can you cook it?
Mm-hmm. So maybe we can just imagine in the application here somewhere, what we call this. It doesn't really matter, right? We have a function here, right? So function. So now we have now this requirement,
Given.
right? So
Okay. So first, I assume the input is I assume the input is a string name. I mean, it's a string, can be the name of the recipe. Yeah.
it can be also just an instance of a recipe class, no?
Instance. Okay.
You're still missing. Yeah. So like one thing that I want to point towards is that we're still missing the modeling of the app itself, right? So can you imagine that there has to be an app and it needs an instance of your refrigerator and needs to know what's in it, right? And it also needs a set of recipes.
Oh, okay. Setup recipe.
A set of recipes in this context. I'm talking about.
A set of
Yeah.
not like initialize the.
Yeah. So you can assume that all the initialization is done. You don't need to worry about that. Right. Keep in mind that we still need to model the application itself, right?
Oh.
In this application, it's given that it knows the quantity of ingredients in the refrigerator, and it also knows a set of recipes, right? So do you want to put these two as fields inside the application class?
Yeah, sure. So here there's some instance for the so there's a set of recipes.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I still want to make it into a map. Its name and its recipe instance.
What's the hold on here? What's can you say the reason again why this recipe is a map?
Because this is I want to use the name of the recipe to be the key of the recipes map.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's fine.
And there should be a fridge. Just for a fridge, we can just use it. There's a fridge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I assume we have already initialized it, and we have already input this
Yes.
data. For example, what the fridge ingredients list are and what the recipes map is. I assume we have done that.
Yeah, that's fine. You can assume that someone already called a constructor with reasonable inputs. That's fine.
Yes. So just for this question or this function, given a recipe, can you cook it?
Mm-hmm.
So first, I want to query the ingredients map, the ingredients of this recipe. I will just go first I get the recipe name. I get that's recipe instance.
Let's put this inside of a function, shall we?
Okay, sure. Because Boolean check. Just name. From this recipe map, we want to first get the recipe instance, and then actually there should be like some gets ingredient map.
Yeah, you don't need to get. It's fine. You can assume that everything's visible. Like, it's fine. Yeah.
And then I want to in fridge have enough ingredients. Okay. I need to thinking about this function. Enough ingredients. I mean the the brute force idea is just to follow the ingredients. I mean, the ingredients in this map, and then to check whether in the fridge there have enough. If this ingredient exists, if it exists, does it have enough enough quantity?
Okay.
So
We can start with that.
okay, we can start with that, or should we thinking some like optimization solution?
There is an edge case you're missing, but it's okay to start with that for now because you won't waste much time.
Okay. Just some pseudocode.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the ingredients. Okay. We have already have the fridge, and I want to put a checking class here.
Sure, you can write any helpers you want.
String and also the quantity. Sorry, it's not here. It's under the fridge. If the fridge ingredient contains this ingredient name, and if the number equal to the quantity, I will return true. Otherwise, return false.
What if it's greater than quantity? What if the number is greater than quantity?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then I will check. Those two. So if it's not true, then we cannot make it.
Okay.
Ingredient.
You're missing the field name, yeah. I think
ingredients.
What is ingredients here? It's
I think it's ingredient.
It should be ingredient dot the thing you want.
Yeah,
this is a type. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, quantity is ingredient dot get value.
Yeah, that's fine.
Should we correct the?
No, we don't need to worry about that. That's just some generic stuff I'm not testing you on. Okay, this is fine. Can we write a quick test for this? So it doesn't be like a real test. You can just say in the comments what's an input, what's an output. Can we go through this really quickly? Just this check function.
Sure, just for checking
Just
the
for check.
this function check.
Yeah, you can use your fried rice example, or whatever example you want. I just want to see a test case input and test case output.
Okay. First case is the recipe name.
Mm-hmm.
Recipe not in this.
No, it's okay if this is the edge case. Let's just talk about a happy case. So you can use your fried rice
Okay,
example, for
happy.
example. Yeah.
Just check if it can return true. It means the fridge have enough ingredients.
Okay.
So for example, still using this. This is as our
Okay.
preliminary setting.
Sure.
So for fried rice, checking the fried rice egg and checking the fried rice. And the second recipe will be
So in this case, if you have fried rice as the input, right? This just a first edge case. If we input fried rice, what should it return, true or false?
If we input fried rice, we should return it true.
Okay.
Fried rice true. And the chicken return false because there's no this kind of ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And another edge case, I think I would want to test if something ingredient is not in the fridge. Oh, this case we should return false.
Yeah.
Because there's no oil.
No oil, yeah.
And we have already tested something ingredient is not in the fridge. And not in the fridge. If it's in the fridge. But the quantity is not enough. So for example, something like that. Not chicken, but
You can just call it. You can just call it chicken too. I don't care about the names. It just doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Chicken
Okay.
too.
Great. Okay. So this is going to be. So I'm happy with the implementation. Now there's one more thing I want to follow up on, which is an edge case, which I don't think you've thought of. Let's say in this case. So first of all, this current implementation is fine. I want to expand on this now. Okay, so I want to increase the complexity of this problem a little bit. So in this situation, let's say we have a recipe, okay, and we can call it fried rice too. Let's be a bit more unique. How's that? Let's call it pasta, okay? So pasta will take an ingredient of noodle. Let's call it 1. Doesn't really matter, and tomato sauce. 1, okay?
Okay.
There's another recipe called tomato sauce. See where I'm going with this? And this will take tomato 1, tomato 1, salt 1. Okay. And by the way, let me just make a little split here. So let's say in this case, my fridge, okay, equals noodle 1, noodle 2, tomato 1, salt 1. Okay. Given this input, can you tell me what your function currently returns?
If it will return false, definitely, because there's no tomato sauce in the fridge. But in this case, we can check or recursively check whether we can make or cook the tomato sauce.
That's right, yeah. So given this new development, can you modify your check function to account for this?
Sure. Ingredient. Recipe. Ingredient map. Fridge. So mm,
So here's a hint. I think you're on
okay,
the right.
I'm still thinking of it. Uh, oh, you can say it.
Okay. I was suggesting that
Mm-hmm.
your check method takes in a recipe, right?
Mm.
And tomato sauce is a recipe,
Okay.
right?
So the
So,
input can be an instant of the recipe.
well, it can be, I mean, tomato sauce is a name, right? You have recipe.name.
Mm.
Right? So if I call check pasta,
Mm.
you can call check tomato sauce if you want.
Yes. That's what I am thinking. I am thinking how to
Okay.
implement it.
Okay.
I want to copy this into under here.
You can copy it wherever you want.
In this case, I'm pasta for loop for the tomato sauce, and I want to check whether it can be made in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Check it, but so in this case, the tomato sauce can be something in the recipe list.
Yes. Pasta and tomato are both recipes.
Okay. If it's a recipe, I'm not sure whether to write it here, but I want to write something too.
Like on paper, that's fine. You can if it helps you, go ahead.
Okay.
Just be aware that I want to know what you're thinking of, so speak a little bit.
I assume there's a function, but I just there's the recipe name, and I want to get the first I get the recipes. I will grab it from here. Oh, just some draft. It doesn't mean
Yeah,
we
that's
can
fine.
call that instance here. Want to I think there will be a like recursive checking. To check something.
So it's good intuition that we need to check the tomato sauce, right? That's sort of the goal here, right? Maybe a way to think about it is what function or where are you gonna call check with tomato sauce and the quantity there?
Yes.
If you
Here I can get the name and quantity, and then I can call it. But I am
So keep in mind that let me think, where are you? So your ingredient name here, the way you named it, so if you look at your parent function, which is in the app, you call fridge.check with the key of the ingredient entry, right? But the ingredient entry might not be an ingredient. It might be a recipe.
yes.
So in this case, this ingredient.getKey is actually equal to tomato sauce.
Mm-hmm. Um, Let me try to rewrite the check function if I input a recipe. And also maybe the name. If we can make the recipe.
So another hint here is that your recipe class might need to change. In other words, this key of your ingredient map might not be an ingredient.
Uh, um, the recipe.
Yeah, so this key can either be a recipe or it can be what you previously called an ingredient, right?
Ingredients.
We can assume that the recipes. So there's kind of two ways you can kind of talk about this. If you want to keep the ingredient map example, right, that's fine, but it might make sense to break down all of the sub recipes when you initialize it. Let me give you an example with our current.
Oh, I see.
So let me
Do you
just
mean like
here I'll tell you
okay.
exactly what I mean. So in this case, so here's our recipe, right? So we want to model pasta, right? So
Yes.
we have a constructor, and we take in. So the constructor, it doesn't really matter. We can assume it takes in reasonable, like a string name, and then a set of, or a whatever. It doesn't really matter. But we can imagine in this case, if you want to keep the original ingredient map, we want the map, right, to eventually equal. This is like fake syntax, doesn't really matter. I want this to eventually equal noodle 1, and then instead of putting tomato sauce here, we expand tomato sauce. So we put tomato 1. See what I did there?
Yeah, I get it. I think this is a good idea, and it needs, for example, the tomato sauce. This recipe have already exist, so it needs some.
Yeah. So if, for example, if you knew that tomato sauce is a recipe, we can break it down until our components, in this case tomato and salt, are not recipes.
Okay.
And then they must be the lowest level, the base level ingredients. And so if you were to store those, then this would still be correct.
Okay. So it means in this case, when we want to break down, we have already the tomato sauce recipe have already exist. Can we assume that? Or?
Yeah. So you can, for example, if you were to make it easier, we can make this assumption that we pass in a set of recipes. So recipes. So you can say that. Why is this? Oh, it's this. So you can assume that you can check all of the existing recipes if we can break the current recipe down.
Okay.
You can make this assumption if it makes it easy for you.
Let me try to implement this.
And you might need some more arguments here. I only use some basic ones.
Mm,
You can assume whatever
Is
arguments you need.
pasta. In this case, for example, I pass pasta and brick. If this constructor function, if that the name.
So let's just break this down a bit. We currently have these two arguments, right? This is the name of the recipe. That's pretty self-explanatory. This is the existing universe of all recipes, which you can use to check, right? And keep in mind
Yes.
that we also need our current ingredients. So, it depends on how I want to represent this. I will just represent this to help you out as, let me think, what's the easiest way to do this? So string and then quantity. So integer. Okay, so this
Okay.
string, so this would be, so this map would be this.
Okay. So name for pasta. I see.
Yeah, so this name is equal to pasta. Okay. This is equal to recipe map. So this equals to, well, this is the only recipe in the dictionary so far, right? Because we don't have pasta yet. This hasn't existed. Right. So this is equal to that. Let me just make this a bit cleaner so it's easy to tell. Oh, it's because my screen is wrong. Hold up. So this is equal to this recipe is equal to this, right? The only recipe in this universe so far is the tomato sauce. And then this is equal to, I'll put that on the side. And this is equal to the current recipe, which is a map of, which is equal to this, which is just this.
Okay. I think I will so here for the current recipe. And then to if this one if this recipe is in the recipe map. If it's in the recipe map, it means it can be breakdown and recipe. So when I create a recipe instance, what I want to make is its name and a set of the raw ingredients that we break down. Oh, I think I will.
So if the recipe map, so this thing here, let's say it's noodle, right? Recipe map in this case doesn't contain noodle, so that would go into this logic. Okay, so noodle goes here. Okay, now the second thing you check is this is tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is inside the recipe map, right?
Yes. The tomato sauce, because it's inside the recipe map, so I can get this one.
Yep. So how do you get that?
So I guess
It's just get.
Recipe map contains the map. I am.
Yeah, so recipe map. So it's recipe map dot get recipe name. This returns a recipe, right? This is a sub recipe, right? This is how you get the recipe. So this will equal to, in this case, this is the tomato sauce recipe. So this will equal to this, right?
Yes, I want
Mm-hmm.
sub p. And I want to sub recipe.
Yep. And remember, when we're sub recipe here, we're assuming this ingredient map has all the base ingredients, right?
So I continue my thoughts. When
we'll do about
I
5
am
minutes from here.
initialized it, I am just create a new just a second. When we put what I want to put I mean add the I want to add such map to turn it into add it into this map.
Oh, you want to add the two maps together? Is that?
Yes. And just some pseudocode to
Yeah, you can
show.
sure, okay, that's fine.
If it's this recipe is a raw materials like noodle, and just ingredient gets new put just raw names recipe name. Then it's recipe.
I like it. Yeah, value, right?
Yes. But I think because how to say it? I think I need some like the base case for when it's getting it is the raw ingredient.
Yeah, there's still some stuff
I hope
missing, but that won't be the focus anymore. We can assume that at this point, let's assume that this method works, that the constructor works, and that our ingredients map will always be initialized correctly to only have the base ingredients and their quantities. Okay. So in this case, if we revisit the original problem, right? The original problem is, what if our recipe that we're checking has a recursive sub recipe? In this case, does your check method work, or are changes still needed?
In this case, in this case, because we have already break it down into all the raw materials, I think our current checking function can work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then maybe one other thing here. This is a bit more. It's a bit of a more analysis question. But in this case, we chose to break down the recipe into its subcomponents in the recipe constructor.
Yes.
Okay. We could have done the same logic in check if we wanted to.
Yes.
Right? And so we could have broken it down in check every time and then check the raw ingredients. We could have done it that way. Can you think of any like high level trade-offs? Like is breaking it down in the constructor, what's the pros and cons there, versus breaking it down in the check method?
Okay, so the pros and cons comparing
Yeah, so
recursively
pros and cons.
do it in
The
checking.
recursively or not doesn't really matter in this case. If we just have the exact same code, if we assume it works, if we do it in the constructor, what's the pros and cons? Or what if we just did the exact same thing, we just put it here, and then continue with the original check function? Okay, so between these two options, what are the pros and cons? And I'll be a bit more specific, which is the pros and cons in terms of the time or space complexities. Maybe just time complexity. Just keep it that way. Keep it simple.
Just in terms of time complexity.
Yeah, we don't have to analyze it too carefully. I just want to talk at a high level. So, for example, in this case, in the recipe, right? Let's say finding all of the subcomponents of a recipe takes time O of t. Doesn't matter. Okay. Now, if we do it in the recipe, right, we will incur. So if we do it in recipe, in constructor, do it this way, constructor, in constructor, this will take O of t per recipe.
Yes.
Okay. If we do it in check, this would be O of t per check. Can you tell me in this context, when would you put it in the constructor versus when would you put it in the check method? For example, if my app has a lot of recipes, I keep adding new recipes to it, but I don't check it very often.
I see.
In this case, which of these two options is better for time?
If we frequently adding new recipes, I think we would better choose do it in the check.
Exactly.
But if we frequently query the ingredient, query whether a recipe can be cooked, it would better to do the constructor.
Exactly.
Do this function.
Yep, exactly. Good. Okay. Let's stop here for today.
Okay.
Let's go around and first of all, nice work. Let me expand my screen a bit. Nice work on the problem. It's a pretty different problem than what most people are probably used to. But these are the kind of problems that I think people need the most insight on, most practice. It's hard to practice these sort of problems by yourself because sometimes the ones on LeetCode are either too much on algorithm and not much on design, or too much on design and there's nothing hard to follow up on it. So good job on it overall. I think there's a lot of good stuff here and also a lot of things which you can also improve on as well. High level wise, I'll say it's good of you to be very clear, to clarify all the details on the problem before starting, right? The fact that recipes can be recursive is just another one of those follow-ons, right? This is something which I think if you had a lot more time to think about it, you might have been able to ask up front. But most of the time, this is not something which is necessarily expected that you be able to kind of have the foresight to see at the beginning, right? But it's good that you clarified all the questions, all the details ahead of time. So that's definitely a positive. One thing I will encourage you on is to think about what kind of classes, when you need a class, when you might not need a class, right? In general, if you ever need to use a map of string to integer or map of name to some properties, right? That is what a class is. A class has fields, right? And a field is a name, and the value of the field is the quantity, right? So whenever you're especially in these type of questions, and when you're modeling something that's kind of like real life, you want to think about opportunities to use classes because of exactly the reason you thought of, right? In this case, you put the in the fridge, you put a helper method check. If your fridge was just this fridge ingredients hash map in the main app class, then your check method would also be in the main app class, and then there would be a bunch of what we call coupling. So in this case, we want to make sure that what you did well in this case with the fridge class is to have all the relevant stuff to fridge in the fridge class, right? In this case, there's another follow-up which I didn't get to ask, but a funny follow-up would have been, what if all the ingredients weren't just names, but they also had their own attributes, right? So for example, what if ingredients had calories, right? I want to know the
Oh.
total calories of this dish. In that case, you wouldn't be able to answer that question with the current data model because there's no way to associate calorie information with an ingredient because ingredients are just strings, right? So these are kind of opportunities to think about. Now that doesn't mean you should make a class for every noun in the system, but just think about the fact that, oh, this is a noun, this is an item, right? I don't need to make a class for it right now, but yet your code needs to be able to interop, like needs to be able to handle the fact that you might need to make it into a class in the future. So these are kind of considerations that you need to be thinking about when you're writing the code. Okay, so that's kind of the main thing about modeling. Otherwise, I think it's just general stuff. Like for example, thinking about the recursive questions wise, be very clear about what types you're dealing with, right? What types in this case, if you're using maps or entries, what is the key? What is the value? Right, in the examples that you use or examples that I give, you can always, like for example in the recipe constructor, you can always write to these dummy values here just to help yourself think through the problem. Right, so these are things which these are just tools that you can use to help yourself out. And I think in general, it's never a bad thing to kind of write down these dummy values. You can always get rid of them in the future, but as long as it helps you think through them, helps you think through one specific example or instance of a class, I think that'll get you most of the way there.
I see. Do you think like I should talk about, or I should how to say, think about there maybe some recursive situation at the beginning?
If you have thought of it, it's always good to ask, because at
But
least,
in fact, I haven't thought about that.
well, then there's nothing you can say. If you haven't thought about it, you can't say anything.
Mm.
If you had think about it, then yes, you should always ask all of the questions up front, because even if you couldn't solve the recursive case even after knowing about it, that's not any different than solving a basic case and then not being able to solve the recursive case, right? So it's always good to clarify as much as possible up front. But sometimes you don't know, and in that case, nothing you can do.
And in terms of, I mean, whether to make, like, for example, ingredient into a class, because our current simple model, we don't have like other fields.
Yep.
So that's why we do not we just put its name. We do not we do not make it into a class.
Yeah, in this case, it's not beneficial to make it a class. It's always good to ask the interviewer if a noun, like an ingredient, needs to be in its own class. You can always say, for example, oh, I recognize the ingredient might be good in its own class, but because there's no other information associated with it, I'm going to just make it a string property.
I see.
Cool.
And in terms of the coupling, could you explain a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I'll be quick about this one, just to be tight on time. Object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm. That means it's a way to think, okay? There's nothing legally stopping you from writing all of your Java code in one class, in only the main method. That would still be Turing complete. That would still execute correctly and logically correctly. The reason we use classes in the first place is to help humans understand the goals of other humans, right? When I make a recipe class, or if I make an ingredient class or a fridge class, I'm communicating to other humans who read my code, or myself in the future, that I intend on this thing to be a logical separation. I want all my refrigerator related helpers, classes, methods, fields to be over here. So I can find it, so I can modify it, so it's easier to touch, right? Coupling is just a notion that you want to put similar things together. That's sort of the idea there. And in this case, one of the things that is not good coupling that I introduced just for the sake of the interview is by passing in two non-usable fields into the constructor recipe, because the recipe shouldn't really need to know about this information, but just for the purpose of this problem, made it easier to solve. So this is an example that I helped on that's maybe an example of bad coupling.
Oh, okay. So you mean for the constructor, for the recipe constructor, it might be some couplings exist in this. Or which function now it has some coupling disadvantage?
Disadvantage right now is the recipe constructor. In a better code example, you would not put this in a constructor. You would put this in a in a builder pattern or some other pattern, right? But that's a bit out of the scope of this level interview. So for the purpose of this interview, that's fine. But because you're asking more generally about what is coupling, I'm just answering in that context as well.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, great work. Thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Round
It's
of
my
applause.
first time for the
Oh, first time?
no objective oriented.
Yes. You'll see these become more and more common, so it's good that you're getting a head start on that. Okay, thank you for your time.